Well, the approval of a new Alzheimer's drug in the U.S. is offering some hope to those living with the disease. Now, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has approved Leqembi for patients with mild or early cases. A clinical trial has found it slows the rate of cognitive decline by 27%. Now, it does come with risks, including brain swelling and bleeding. The treatment is also expensive, costing about $35,000 a year. So let's talk more right now about Leqembi with Kyle Fitzgerald. He is the Director of Government Relations with the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario. He's live this morning. Kyle, just how significant is this in terms of the Alzheimer's community and, hearing about a drug that does this at this point?
Yeah, good morning, Nick. Thanks for having me. And I think the important context is we don't have any treatment whatsoever in Canada right now for Alzheimer's disease itself. The only drugs we have treat the underlying symptoms, but they can't actually alter the trajectory of the disease. So when you're talking about the news out of the US, where there is actually now a treatment that reduces cognitive decline by over a quarter, by over 25%, that's major news, and it really does give hope to a lot of Ontarians, specifically the over 250,000 Ontarians who are in that age bracket where they might be developing dementia within the next 5 or 10 years. Those are really the individuals who most stand to benefit from this drug, if and when it should be approved for use in Canada.
Okay, and that's the key question, right? Of course, it's been approved by the FDA south of the border, but nothing yet here in Canada. But this must be inspiring hope, and there must be, I would assume, some pressure as well for at least Health Canada to now look at that. What's the process here, Kyle? How could this potentially work, and how could we potentially see this coming north of the border?
Yeah, and that is an important thing to note, is that obviously it's wonderful that the FDA has deemed it to be safe and effective, but Canada does have its own independent, rigorous process, and we fully stand behind that. And after it's approved for use in Health Canada, we still need to convince provincial governments, OHIP here in Ontario, to fund it for all those who need it. And that's something we've seen with another drug, Aduhelm, which is also approved for use in the US, where we've seen some Canadians who are so desperate for this treatment are actually paying out of pocket and going south of the border to get it. So in order to really make sure this drug is applied equitably to everyone who can benefit from it, we do need that obviously rigorous approval process, but also a quick approval to make sure it's getting to those who need it, and we don't have an inequitable rollout where those who can afford it can go to the States and those who can't are left waiting here in Ontario and Canada.
Yeah, and the ability to sort of prolong quality of life is such a huge thing here, Kyle. So what, up to this point, what does treatment actually look like on this side of the border for people who do live with Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so it's important to note even that from the diagnostic perspective, most Ontarians and Canadians don't have a confirmed diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. They have a probable or a presumptive diagnosis, and that's something that's going to have to change if we do want to make effective use of this drug. As you mentioned in that introduction, this isn't cheap. It's going to be expensive, but we think it's worth it, but it is going to be expensive. So we need to make sure that the folks who are receiving this drug actually get a treatment. In Ontario right now, you can wait for up to 18 months to see a dementia specialist to get a confirmed diagnosis. That's simply too long. Leqembi needs to be administered at that mild cognitive impairment, at that mild Alzheimer's disease stage. We don't do a good job in Ontario of detecting it that early and of getting a diagnosis that quickly.
So what are the issues? What are the stumbling blocks then, Kyle, here in Ontario that are making this so difficult, with or without this drug that's been approved by the FDA, just to sort of manage and treat people here? There's not enough doctors, not enough specialists, not enough funding. What is it?
Yeah, there's not enough of everything. Unfortunately, and that includes education and knowledge. We hear what I'd call horror stories pretty often from individuals who go to their doctor with pretty clear symptoms of dementia, and they're told, oh no, you're just getting old. That's not true. Alzheimer's disease is not a normal part of aging. Age is your #1 risk factor, but there's a major difference in forgetting to record something on the TV versus forgetting your wife and your children's name. And there isn't that recognition that Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. So it starts with making sure that when folks do take that big step, because it is a big step to come forward and admit that you might have dementia, that's a major step for people. When they come forward, they need to be supported in that diagnosis process, and that starts with primary care. And also, yes, we do need more specialists. Ontario has about half of the geriatricians that we need, and that's true Canada-wide as well.
All right, well, a really important conversation. Kyle Fitzgerald, he's with the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario. Do appreciate the time this morning. Thanks for joining us here on CP24 Breakfast.
Thank you for having me. Enjoy your week.